Elon Musk, a man synonymous with technology and the future, found himself unexpectedly at a roadside redwood diner in the dusty expanse of Texas. Wearing a Maga hat, he chose a modest corner table. Soon, a group of rugged bikers entered, their eyes narrowing at the sight of the symbol on his hat. What began as an atmosphere thick with tension took an unforeseen turn, leading them, and perhaps even you, to reflect on the profound connections between people. How did a seemingly fraught confrontation transform into an inspiring lesson? Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Elon stepped into the modest redwood diner, a quiet spot nestled along the dusty Sierra Junction in Arizona. A flickering neon sign buzzed faintly under the fading evening light. Inside, the aroma of sizzling bacon mingled with a hint of syrup, while the low murmur of conversation filled the air. It wasn't fancy, but it was a dependable stop for weary travelers and locals alike. He parked his electric truck in the gravel lot and emerged in his usual understated attire. Jeans, a Tesla t-shirt, and the Maga hat perched loosely on his head. The hat wasn't a statement, just a gift from a conference, and a practical shield against the blazing Texas sun. Selecting a corner seat, he ordered coffee and waffles from a waitress whose face bore the lines of a life well lived. Elon wasn't seeking attention. If anything, he relished the peace of anonymity in this small, unfamiliar diner, far from the ceaseless buzz of Silicon Valley. The door jingled as it swung open, and a group of 6 leather-clad bikers entered. They carried the air of seasoned road warriors, their laughter booming as if nothing could faze them. Most patrons cast brief glances their way before returning to their meals. But Elon's eyes lingered. He caught the gaze of a burly man with a thick beard and a leather jacket emblazoned with the name Jack. Jack's laughter died as his eyes fixed on Elon's hat. His casual grin hardened into a calculated stare. "Well, looks like Hollywood's lost someone." Jack's voice sliced through the room, sharp and provocative. His companions snickered, their eyes glued to Elon. The waitress froze mid-step, tension etched across her face. Elon looked up from his coffee, his gaze calm yet inquisitive. "Hollywood?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, his voice light as a breeze. Jack's heavy boots thudded against the diner floor as he approached, his presence seeming to shrink the room. "You sure about that hat, buddy?" Jack growled, his voice low and gravelly. "That hat doesn't show up here by accident." Elon set his coffee cup down deliberately, his eyes meeting Jack's unflinchingly. "Sometimes," he replied evenly, "a hat is just a hat." The diner fell silent, every eye fixed on the unfolding exchange. Even the faint clinking of cutlery against plates seemed amplified in the stillness. Jack leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Elon's table. "That hat says something," Jack murmured, his voice steady but charged with meaning. "People wear it to take a stand. So, which side are you on, big shot?" Elon glanced around the diner, noting the apprehensive faces of the other patrons. The waitress had disappeared into the kitchen, and a man at the counter whispered to himself, "This is why I never stop at places like this." Turning back to Jack, Elon's voice was calm but firm. "Are you sure this is the right place for this conversation?" he asked, gesturing subtly toward the nervous audience. Jack shrugged, his lips curling into a thin smile. "Why not? People like you don't show up here unless you're looking for trouble." Elon smiled faintly. "I'm here for the waffles. They're excellent, you should try them." The unexpected reply drew a laugh from one of Jack's companions, though it was quickly stifled by Jack's sharp glare. His expression turned steely again. "You think this is funny?" he demanded. "No," Elon replied, his tone unwavering. "But misunderstandings often are." Jack's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Wearing that hat, you're either clueless or looking for a fight. That hat carries history, and not everyone's okay with what it stands for." Elon took a measured sip of coffee before answering. "I understand, but perhaps it says more about you than it does about the hat." Jack straightened, his eyes flashing with challenge. "All right then, why are you wearing it?" he demanded, arms crossed. Elon traced the rim of his coffee cup thoughtfully. Because it was a gift, he said plainly. I'm not wearing it to pick a side. It reminds me of the man who gave it to me, an engineer who spent his life solving problems most people don't even notice. We had a remarkable conversation about hard work, innovation, and leaving the world better than we found it. Elon's sincerity cut through the tension like a knife. Jack's hardened demeanor softened, if only slightly. Different story, Jack muttered after a pause. But you know what it looks like around here, don't you? Absolutely, Elon said, nodding. But instead of judging someone by appearances, why not talk about what actually matters? Jack remained silent, his skepticism flickering in his eyes. His companions shifted uneasily, clearly unused to seeing their leader so disarmed. A wiry man with a long scar down his cheek spoke up, his voice laced with challenge. All right, genius. What side are you on? Then, Elon's gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly on each face before returning to Jack. I stand for moving forward, he said, his voice low but resonant. For finding common ground, even when it feels impossible. And for believing that no matter how divided we seem, there's always a way to connect. The silence in the diner shifted. It was no longer tense but carried an air of curiosity, a shared wonder about where this unfolding story might lead. Jack pressed his lips into a thin line before giving a small nod. All right, he said, his voice gruff but less confrontational. You've got my attention. So, what does moving forward mean to you? Elon leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. Moving forward starts with conversations like this, he said, his voice steady. People don't always agree, but often it's because they haven't really tried to understand each other's perspective. Jack tilted his head, arms still crossed. Sounds like a let's all get along kind of thing. Life doesn't work like that. Elon shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. No, it doesn't. But it also doesn't work when people assume the worst about each other without asking questions. Take us, for example. You saw this hat and made a judgment. I get it. Where I'm from, people judge too. But imagine how things might be different if we started by asking why, instead of thinking we already know all the answers. Jack furrowed his brows, clearly wrestling with the idea. The man with the scar, standing nearby, interjected. All right, Elon. Since we're asking questions now, what brings you here? A guy like you doesn't just walk into the Redwood Diner in the middle of Texas. For waffles. Elon smirked. Believe it or not, he said, I'm scouting locations for a project. I wanted to see the area for myself, talk to people, and get a feel for the place. You'd be surprised how much you can learn just by listening. The scarred man let out a dry laugh. Listening? You've got the wrong guys. We're all about action. Action is great, Elon replied, his tone calm. But it's even better when guided by understanding. That's why I create things, to solve problems, to build something that makes life better for as many people as possible. And that includes you. Jack raised an eyebrow. Includes us? What's that supposed to mean? Elon straightened up, meeting Jack's sharp gaze. It means people who know the value of hard work, who build things with their own hands. Do you think Tesla or SpaceX came out of nowhere? They were built on principles you live by: grit, determination, and not giving up when things get tough. The atmosphere in the diner shifted again. The bikers, once ready to stir trouble, now seemed intrigued. Jack stood a little taller, his piercing eyes fixed on Elon. So what's your angle? Trying to win us over with big ideas and fancy words? There's no angle, Elon said simply, his voice unwavering. It's just a conversation. But if you're interested, I've got something I'd like to show you. It might change how you think about what's possible. Elon swiped his card, and the glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The air inside was crisp and cool, a stark contrast to the dusty diner they had just left. The soft hum of machinery filled the expansive space as workers moved with precision and purpose. Giant screens displayed real-time production data, and gleaming robotic arms worked seamlessly alongside humans on assembly lines. Welcome to the future, Elon said, gesturing to the vast space. This is where we create electric vehicles, energy storage systems, and technologies that could change how we live, if we're willing to embrace them. The bikers lingered hesitantly at the entrance, their expressions a mix of skepticism and awe. The youngest of the group, a man with a red bandana tied around his head, broke the silence. "This is unreal," he murmured, his wide eyes fixed on a robotic arm assembling a car frame with meticulous precision. Elon smiled and nodded. "Impressive, right? Come on, let me show you around." They followed Elon through the factory as he enthusiastically explained each area. He pointed out the battery assembly line, where sleek modules were crafted with extraordinary precision. At another station, solar panels were tested for durability, and Elon detailed how they could power remote communities. In yet another section, engineers were developing a prototype for an affordable electric vehicle designed to make sustainable transportation accessible to everyone. "This isn't about making toys for billionaires," Elon said, his voice firm amidst the background noise of machinery. "It's about solving problems that affect all of us. Climate change doesn't care how much money you have, where you're from, or what you believe in. It's on all of us to find solutions." Jack, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the tour, finally spoke. "Do you really believe all this can make a difference?" "Absolutely," Elon replied without hesitation. "But it's not just the technology. It's the people, those willing to think differently, imagine a better future, and work together to make it happen." Jack nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the assembly lines. "Impressive," he admitted. "But what's all this mean for someone like me? A guy who spent his life fixing old machines, not building new ones." Elon turned to face Jack directly. "It matters because it shows you what's possible," he said, his voice low but resolute. "It's easy to get stuck in what's always been, but when you see something like this, see that change is possible, it opens your mind to what you could do too." The group of bikers remained silent as the tour continued. Their initial skepticism had given way to curiosity and reflection. Even Jack, the hardened leader who had confronted Elon at the diner, now seemed softer, his gaze thoughtful as he took in the possibilities surrounding him. As they returned to the entrance of the Tesla factory, Elon stopped and turned to the group. His expression was serious but welcoming. "Look," he said, his voice calm yet firm, "I'm not saying this place solves every problem, but it's a start. And if you're curious, if someday you want to learn more about what's out there, this place will always welcome you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Jack stepped forward, extending a calloused hand. "You're a strange guy, Musk," he said with a fleeting smile. "But I respect what you're doing." Elon shook his hand firmly. "Thanks, Jack. And I respect what you do too. Oh, and by the way, those waffles back at the diner were genuinely great." Laughter rippled through the group of bikers, breaking the tension that had shadowed them since the diner. As they climbed back onto their motorcycles, their conversations shifted to what they had just witnessed. Back at the dusty parking lot of the diner, the bikers dismounted, their boisterous demeanor subdued. The diner seemed smaller now, while the world outside the Tesla factory had grown vast and full of potential. They stood in a loose circle around their bikes, each lost in their own thoughts. Even Jack, who had dominated the earlier confrontation, was unusually contemplative. Elon was the last to step out of his Cybertruck, leaning casually against it. He surveyed the group before breaking the silence. "I've been to a lot of places and met many people, but today was different. You all reminded me why conversations like these matter, not just for technology but for the direction of society." Jack looked up, his expression unreadable. "You talk a good game, Musk," he said, "but I'll admit you gave me something to think about today. That doesn't happen often." Elon smiled. "Thinking is the first step. Action is the next." The youngest biker, a man with a red bandana, looked at Elon and asked, "Do you really think all this tech can fix the world?" "Honestly," Elon's face grew serious, "I think technology is a tool. It's not about the machines or the devices, it's about how we use them. We can build walls to divide, or we can build bridges to connect. The choice is always ours." The group fell silent again, each man grappling with the weight of Elon's words. Finally, Jack broke the quiet, extending his hand once more. "You're not half bad, Musk," he said, his voice low but sincere. "We might not agree on everything, but I respect you for standing by what you believe in." Elon took his hand in a firm grip. "And I respect you for listening. That's the hardest part." The rumble of motorcycle engines shattered the stillness of the parking lot as one by one, the bikers rode off into the fading light. Elon stood by his truck, watching them disappear down the dusty road. Jack was the last to leave, giving Elon a subtle nod before revving his engine and riding away. Climbing into his Cybertruck, Elon sat for a moment, gazing at the horizon. Encounters like this didn't happen every day, but when they did, they served as a powerful reminder of why he did what he did. Progress wasn't just about building machines or launching rockets into space. It was about connecting with people, even in the most unexpected circumstances. As the engine hummed to life, Elon drove off, leaving the diner behind but carrying the day's lessons forward. This story serves as a reminder that sometimes, unexpected confrontations can open the door to understanding and connection. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where a seemingly contentious conversation turned into an opportunity to learn and grow? Share your story in the comments. It could inspire others to see things from a new perspective. If you found this story meaningful, share it with your friends and family to spread the message of empathy, understanding, and the power of open-minded conversations. Thank you for taking the time to read. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay connected with more inspiring stories. Together, we can make a difference, starting with small but meaningful actions. Wishing you peace and happiness.